Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Dev in the Details. Today we're doing something a little bit unique, and I'm actually joined once again by Arvind Naitakarsha, co-founder and chief technology officer for Rubrik. Now, Arvind's joined me on a previous episode just about 6 months ago, and I would say things are different today in the organization than they were 6 months ago. First of all, last episode I mostly called you Arvind. This episode I might be calling you Nitro a little bit more often, which as I understand it is a college nickname that stuck.
Yeah, it's a college nickname. It's a hazing ritual. Usually you get hazed in my college back in India, and then as part of the process you get a nickname, and that's what you call throughout the entire 4 years that you're there. Last name was Naitakarsha, chemical engineering seniors. I guess this was inevitable, but then. There are other nicknames that cannot be shared in a polite company, so I'm glad I ended up with this. I thought I'd shaken it off, but then it kind of came back at some point. But
I have to say that, like, of all the nicknames that someone could have gotten, Nitro for being a chemical engineer sounds like pretty.
I mean, no, the seniors who hazed me were chemical engineer. I was obviously computer science, but
I see.
But yes, it was.
It stuck, and at this point, I think it's something that I also can't get out of my head. But Nitro, we spoke 6 months ago. And at the point that we spoke, it actually was one of our most popular episodes at the time. And we were talking about the chief technology officer's perspective on AI inside of a public company. Tell me a little bit about what are the top themes that have changed in your mind in terms of where Rubrik in the world was at with AI in December of last year versus when we're taping today, 6 months later.
I think even being the dinosaur that I am, I don't think I have seen this level of change in 6 months. I feel like I've been in the industry for almost, call it like 30 years now, but the last 6 months have been insane. It's just a level of change where we were, I would say, and I think we recorded this late last year, right?
That's right, the end of last year.
And where we were then versus where we are now, it's almost night and day. And just in terms of just what is happening in the industry. Yeah, so I mean, I think if at that point we had rolled out some coding tools. I would say that's maybe the extent of, I would say, agents, or we had started using some coding agents and stuff like that. I would say that from a productivity perspective, I could at most claim like 10%, 15% productivity, and we're still trying to figure out, what will unlock this. And fast forward to today, we have the entire organization, and actually not just engineering, product, and good chunks of maybe like 800 folks outside of R&D.
Yeah.
Using Claude Code. We also rolled out Cowork to everybody. So everybody has an AI tool on their desktop. Obviously, there are each organization is in a different stage, but in engineering, for example, we are seeing true acceleration. There were projects that we thought would deliver by end of this year. We're now looking like July, August.
Wow, so like half the time.
Half the time.
I think
these are large projects. These are not like small check-ins.
I think one of the things that stood out from like our last episode was like, I would consider you sort of no BS when it comes towards AI. Like, a lot of people are like, it's going to be amazing. In December of last year, you said, hey, look, if your world was LinkedIn, you would think that agents are already here. But we know the reality is different. That's kind of what you said at the end of last year. Today, it feels like agents are here more so than ever. You mentioned all the developers, more than 800 people outside of core development. What changed? I've heard some people credit it to like the Opus releases and the models got better for long horizon tasks in December. But like, if you just thought about your view at Rubrik, what actually changed where we went from, let's say, a certain trajectory to exponential on AI?
Yeah, so I mean, our AI journey started, I would say, middle of last year, right? So we, and again, engineering was kind of the canary in the coal mine. We started experimenting with a different tool, which was Augment at that time.
Right.
Initially, it was almost like a code assist kind of tool that we started with, but then they quickly built an index on our code. Then they also built an agent mode that we could start using. I remember playing with it, and I remember even back in June or July, I was able to code up a Salesforce analysis app, just a script that would analyze opportunities and give me some answers while watching Mission Impossible in the sun, right? So that to me was the light bulb moment. Okay, this is different. Something I didn't know how to write a Salesforce app. I hadn't even seen the API until then. But then we rolled it out to everybody. It was chugging along. I would say, yeah, maybe about 10%, 20% improvement.
Yeah.
But there was still something holding us back. Then a few things happened. One is obviously Claude Code came out. People started playing with Claude Code. One of our senior engineers who's part of our tech council, he started Claude Code and he said, I don't know what it is, they don't even have an index on our code. They're literally doing grep on the code, right, for all practical purposes. But somehow the context they have or something, this is just way more effective. And so I'll give you this example. So we have this is old tech debt. We've had these API. We have an API server that has thousands of APIs that are all as one big monolith. What we want to do is really break it up into components so that each service could have its own set of APIs, so it could deploy almost independently. Right now, it is a monolith that anytime you made an API change, you had to go deploy the monolith, which had also dependencies. So we said, how can we break this monolith? 1 year ago, I would have said, no, we're not going to do it because it's probably 8 people working for 3 years. And we would have been lucky if you'd have been able to. It was a complicated endeavor.
Yeah. So
this guy, he took it on, and he initially was going to do it with the previous tool. He said, okay, I'm going to try it with Claude Code. And then a team of folks started working on it, and he basically started reaching the stage where he said, okay, I've created the harness, I've created a basic set of instructions, I basically tell it to do something, kick it off and go to sleep. Morning it's finished, it has a diff ready, and then I go and review it, maybe I iterate, then send it out for review. In a day or two, we are ready to, there's one chunk of like APIs that have migrated. So he basically was like, I think, so we were saying, okay, should we shift, should we try both, whatever. He was like, categorically, we said, let's go, we should go do it. Separately, while this was going on, we just come back from the holidays, and I was like, okay, I want to get a sense of what is the real bottleneck here. So I haven't written code in 8 years. I took a bug in our core product, VMware, which is the original product. I asked one of our founding engineers, say, hey, give me a bug that you want solved. Give it to me. Kind of used him as my tech lead and started doing stuff. And again, I didn't write a single line of code. And this is when one of the other breakthroughs was we realized that this whole spec-driven development was something that was important, because what you want to do is you want to work with the agent, build a spec of what the plan for what you're going to do, and then let the agent execute the plan. You iterate until the plan looks good. So I just follow this thing, saying, okay, let me build a plan for this bug. I sent it to my tech lead, and he reviewed it and said, I think you should do this differently. So I iterated, got the plan. He said, yeah, the plan looks good. Then I told the agent to go build it step by step. I iterated a little bit, created a PR, sent it to him. He said he had a few comments. I said, go address the comments. I addressed it. Again, I'm not writing a single line of code.
Yeah.
I'm just literally telling the agent what to do. And I had something, and then I sent it out for review with one of the he's obviously founding engineer. I sent it to actually one of the team members. They had a few comments. But the other interesting realization I had was that obviously I haven't written code in 8 years. I hadn't looked at this component in ages. And one of the engineers asked me a pretty detailed question, and had built enough context just working with this tool to go answer the question and say, yeah, you're right, but this is the reason why I did this. But maybe you have a point here, I'll go implement it this way. And he said, yeah, that sounds good. 1 year ago, I couldn't have had this conversation. But I didn't have, I literally learned this context working with this thing. And then I did this, so I eventually checked it in. Then I took another area where I hadn't even worked back in 2013, 2014 timeframe. This is a net new SQL server I'd never touched.
Yeah.
I said, okay, let me again go look at this. Again, did the same process. Again, got it done. I think my aha moment was, this is basically what you have is, you have basically context now is relatively free, because you have this tool that can patiently answer any question you have. So basically it teaches you about the code or whatever you want to do. You basically start with the problem, so it can teach you what you don't know. It can brainstorm with you on how to solve something. So say, can we do this? What are the issues? And it will give you answer. And then you build more context around that. And then once you know what to do, you tell it to do something, it does it for you.
Yes.
So it's kind of like a teacher, brainstorming partner, and an intern who will code up, a smart intern who will code up for you.
Yeah.
Which was actually fascinating to me. And then I also started working on just a personal project, like some Indian music classification, stuff like that. I know nothing about neural networks. I know nothing about how to represent this. And I learned some techniques through just by iterating with Claude code. And that's when I realized that, okay, the world is changing. We've got to do something different. So I basically created a deck and shared my leadership, then shared with all the leaders of the company and the entire organization, saying that the world is changing.
Yeah.
At this point, this is the way we have to go and operate.
Have you ever felt that way? You've been in the industry for some time. Have you ever felt that way in terms of like game changer technology, like you did with Claude Code? Was there another thing that came close, or is this a unique experience?
I mean, when I started my career, that was in the early days of the internet, and yeah, it kind of felt like that was truly game changing.
Yeah.
Because the kind of stuff the information you had in your fingertips, which you couldn't even imagine before that. So
right.
Clearly, and what you could do with just the internet as a tool, right? As a developer, what you could do, I think was fascinating. This almost seems like multiple orders of magnitude higher than that.
That's an incredible statement.
Right? Because this is something that nothing has replaced, I would say, human knowledge and even some level of reasoning and processing.
Yeah.
And this comes pretty close, right? So it is mind-boggling.
And judgment and taste. I know people say like taste is a bottleneck, and I think that is like to some extent true, but my experience using the models is like they're not bad.
I think judgment and intuition is still, I don't know that it's a solved problem per se.
Yeah.
Because we do see these agents going down the rabbit hole, the wrong rabbit hole, right? So
yes.
It does have. So you don't need to pull it out of that whole rabbit hole and put it in a different place, and that
right.
I don't think sometimes they're not able to get out of that.
Right.
But still, what is possible? I mean, just this personal project I was doing, I have learned so much about how you could represent music in a spectrogram. I didn't even know what the hell it was. What kind of maybe some learning techniques on how to learn scales, what works, what doesn't work. I still haven't solved the problem, but I've learned a lot through the process, right? So that was a revelation for me. So I kind of almost made it a mandate saying, this is the way we're going to do things. I said, everybody should be able to, if I can write code, every manager can write code, obviously every developer can write code, and I expect productivity to increase. And then I said, from a success perspective, I only care about two things. I don't care about lines written by AI. I don't care about other vanity metrics. All I care about is roadmap acceleration, what I told you, something that should have come in Q4, can it come in Q3 or Q2? Because that's true value for the business. And then the other thing is when you actually have issues that if the customer is facing, can we actually reduce the mean time to resolution? So to me, those are the only metrics that matter from a business perspective.
Actually, from the business perspective, I don't know the last time we inked a deal and rolled out something as fast as when we rolled out Claude Code. At this, at the level of magnitude at which we inked, and then also at the level of adoption that we got internally. What did you see during the POC when we rolled that out to the organization that gave you the conviction, we need to go ahead and make this an organizational level mandate, we need to give it in everyone's hands, and we need to sign a pre-commit here? Because I think you explained what you saw firsthand. But then this got rolled out in a POC test period, I think, for some period of time.
Actually, so there were two aspects here. Within engineering, when I was playing with it, there were a few more people playing with it.
Yeah.
And we reached conviction very quickly. And these are Tech Council is our senior most engineers, and I do trust their judgment extensively. And all of them were converging on the same thing, that this is game changing. Yeah. That's when we just made the call to say roll it out. So once we said roll it out, there was no at that point it wasn't a POC. We just wrote to all of engineering, we're rolling it out.
Yeah.
Very quickly the product team got wind of it and said, okay, hey, we want it as well. And so we said, okay, yeah, go for it, let's roll it out.
Yeah.
And including our chief product officer, she jumped on the bandwagon. She led from the front there as well. So I think the key thing is, I think my learning is that as a leader, you have to gain conviction.
Yeah.
And the only way to do it is by doing it yourself and understanding the power of what is possible. Mm-hmm. And once you know that, then you have the conviction to go push on this, because it's still new. You're still trying to figure out is this the right thing or not. And what I realized was it doesn't matter whether this is the best maybe some other tool will come and be better than this, but at this point, if this is the best tool, just roll it out and don't think too hard about it.
One of the things you said earlier is context is on effectively free now.
Yeah.
And it's this infinitely patient teacher that can sit there to answer questions. I've also heard people say software is becoming increasingly free, in the sense that at least generation for software,
Yes.
the time is compressed. What's the bottleneck now? Like, if we thought about the roadmap, and it's certainly accelerating.
Yeah.
Claude Code is making it easier. What's replaced, let's say, the time for product development from a software engineering standpoint?
We actually had this whole R&D-wide conversation saying, earlier, if you think about it, any large software project, 20% maybe was product requirements, things like that. Maybe another 10% was UX design and things like that. So it was maybe 30% of, I'll call it, product and UX work. 70% was coding. Now, if that 70% becomes 10, then first of all, in R&D, product and UX becomes a bottleneck, which is why we said no, roll it out to product as well, so that they can also accelerate.
Right.
So I would say that's the first step in terms of what is the AI base. How do product and UX teams and all of that apply and accelerate there. But let's say we work through that as well, because one of the things that we have rolled out to the product team is they have access to all transcripts, and they can actually say, okay, what are customers saying about this product?
Right.
And so that way they can get a lot of insights into what's happening.
Yeah.
Right. So that accelerates them. They can maybe make more informed decisions.
Yeah.
But let's assume we R&D is fast. Then the question comes in. I think that it boils down to two things. One is, okay, if R&D accelerates, can go-to-market accelerate at the same pace? So, for example, if we go 2x, can we double our revenue? Right now, the answer is probably no, because go-to-market has its own set of frictions that we have to deal with. So we are actually now doubling down on what can we do from a top-line go-to-market perspective. How can we accelerate that? For example, a new product comes in today. Enablement is a hard process, especially when you have maybe 1,000+ sellers. So we are actually thinking, could you have a coach who listens to your last call and says, hey, great call, but you know what, here are 3 things that when the customer asks a question, here are 3 ways that you could answered that, right? And maybe next time, maybe you want to couch it this way. And already folks have built some skills like that.
Yeah.
And so I think the go-to-market engine is the next piece.
Yeah.
How do you get this, how do you do maybe account-based marketing? How do you enable sales to go do this? How do you enable our partners to go do this?
Yeah.
So that's I would say the next bottleneck. And then the final bottleneck is what is the absorption rate of the market itself? And maybe there's a certain rate at which the product you build can be absorbed by the market.
Yeah.
And to me, I feel like our job is to make sure that we can hit
saturating.
We can hit that absorption rate, right?
Yes.
So to me, it's like you accelerate R&D, then you have to figure out how the go-to-market engine can accelerate.
Yeah.
And then how do we go and flood the market so that every opportunity you maximize the absorption.
There's 2 threads I want to pull on here, actually. And I don't know if you remember, but when we spoke in December, you actually gave me an example of an agent that wouldn't be straightforward to build, not necessarily just because of the model, but because what you said is like, hey, I'd love to give an agent access to the transcripts into Salesforce. But we're a public company, we're therefore regulated, there's SOX controls. We can't just give agents access to sensitive data that easily. But at the same time, we kind of have this chicken and egg problem where agents also do need access to data in order to be able to do work. And to some extent, customer transcripts are, they're not something we post publicly for sure. They're sensitive. What are some of the things that have gotten us to be comfortable and you to be comfortable in enabling agentic access to Salesforce, enabling agentic access to customer transcripts?
Yeah. And I would say it's still work in progress. I don't think we've cracked every code because there are regulations we need to work with, right? So there are certain things we're working through. I think the first thing is the mindset is that you have to start thinking acceptable risk. There is always some risk in this.
Yes.
Right? Again, 30 years I've been working on building deterministic, somewhat not provable, but at least deterministic systems that I can say that I think it'll do the right thing. Suddenly we're in this new world of like pure probabilistic
Yeah.
systems, right? You're building probabilistic
You could always
systems.
unit test before, and now
Doesn't
we're like,
matter, right?
it'll probably pass, but I
It'll
don't know.
probably pass.
Yeah.
Evals, yeah, it's 80% eval, 90% eval success is probably good, right? So suddenly you're dealing with this lot more uncertainty, and that's just, so there's a natural risk that comes with it. So I think we have to start thinking about acceptable risk. And this is something that I think across the board, and I'm not, obviously it's easier for R&D organizations, but this is where the legal team is leaning in and thinking about acceptable risk. Even as chief legal officer is thinking, is that acceptable risk? If that's acceptable risk, that's fine. Our CISO is saying, hey, what I'll do is I will present the risk to you. If you deem that as acceptable risk from a business perspective, you should go ahead, right? So, but I just want to make sure that you have all the information, right? So everybody, so there is a mindset change. But then the other thing is where I think having both visibility and some form of governance would, I think, gives you more comfort. The challenge is you can't suddenly put a human in the loop when agents are operating at like 10x the speed. So this is where I think, I mean, again, this is where we have leveraged our own product, which is the Rubrik Agent Cloud, to actually act as a governance layer. And there were examples where I think one engineer was just trying to publish an internal document into a PR. For some issue, the agent wasn't able to do it. Just ended up publishing a public gist.
Yeah.
Right, and this was not even like just internal, but public-facing gist.
Yes.
So, and again, this was just what we realized was that these agents are creative. If they can't find one way, they'll work out another way. And unless they're explicitly told not to do it,
yes,
they'll go and do it. I mean, I was likening it to a toddler. You can tell the toddler 10 things. You can't think of the 11th thing that the toddler will figure out and do, right? So it is a bit like that. And so that's where I think some form of governance, which is dynamically looking at this and policy-based governance is important.
Yes.
And in fact, this one policy we have implemented, and we have validated that if somebody tries to publish a public gist, we do catch it and stop it there, right?
Yes.
So this again is, even our InfoSec team says, okay, now I feel I sleep easy at night knowing that you're not going to publish secrets in the public domain. So it's things like that we have to put some of those tools in place, have the level of observability and all of that, and we have also figured out some creative ways in which this product also hooks into Claude Code and Cowork.
Tell me about your view on AI in the loop, and also if that's moved and shifted at all over the last 6-12 months. And I'll say that I think I oftentimes speak to organizations and can almost bucket them in one of two ways. Have they tried Claude Code or a similar agent harness, or haven't they?
Yeah.
And I think if you haven't tried Claude Code and your entire world is like Copilot or something along those lines, you tend to have a little bit more comfort in like static and deterministic rules. You say, look, I know I can govern this by blocking access. I find if you use Claude Code, you're like, it's just not possible. Like, there's just no way. But what's been your opinion? Did you kind of always think AI in the loop is the way to go? Did any part of that change as you were using Claude Code? Were there like instances that made it more real?
Yeah, because I mean, here's one problem we're facing once you've rolled out Claude Code, right? Yeah. The review volume has shot up. Yes. And people are getting inundated with code review requests. And we still want one human reviewer in the loop. We have tried, there are obviously, I'll call it the peer reviewer, and then there are, I'll call it the group reviews, right? Mm-hmm. Are you following API best practices? Are you following security best practices, which are not verifying functionality, but making sure you adhere to best practices. So all those group reviews we have now automated. Mm-hmm. The idea is that whatever you would do as a human, codify that as instructions, publish that, and then there's an automatic review that comes in as a skill that comes in, hopefully addresses issues the same comments that you would as a human. Mm-hmm. And we even did something where we would go and evaluate this based on the last 100 PRs that this group did. So that's, okay, what's the success rate? Mm-hmm. Does the instruction actually meet the success rate that humans have, right? So that's how we evaluate this. Mm-hmm. So we are trying to eliminate all but one human reviewer, but even those human reviewers are getting inundated. Mm. So now the human reviewer can't sit there and look at like lines of code. They themselves have to use Claude to say, hey, okay, what is this? Mm-hmm. What is this PR about? Okay, have they addressed this question? Oh, if so, do they have a test around this? So you almost have to do like this inquisition with Claude Code to be able to, again, handle the throughput. And so you getting human in the loop will become harder and harder. And so this is where we feel that you almost need a a model as a judge based on some clear policy you publish, and that's how you can accelerate this. But at the end of the day, as you automate more and more and agents do more and more, you cannot bring human validation. Maybe there's a threshold, something that's okay. There's an absolute red flag. Maybe you flag those, but that's less than 5% of the requests, and the remaining 95%. In fact, the other thing we are saying is that even for general, call it security reviews or design reviews and all of that, what we should do is we should follow more of an, what I'm pushing for is more of an inform and audit model rather than a block and review model. And what I mean by that is, let's say you're in InfoSec, I'll make sure that you're constantly getting a stream of things that we're doing. You can use whatever AI tools to determine, and 95% are probably fine. You can just, maybe you can even write an agent that catches the 95%, just validates and says, yeah, this is good, I don't need to worry about that. And then maybe the 5% where it sees a red flag, you go, now as a human, you go and examine that deeply and then say, hey, this is not okay. And then if truly it is a red flag, R&D should treat that as a P0 and go fix that.
Yes.
Right, because you have raised something. So that way you're not blocking the normal process.
Yes.
But when something important comes up, we treat it as a P0 and we fix it.
I like that. Inform and audit rather than block and review is kind of a principle. I do think in order to do inform and audit, though, that team, legal InfoSec, would need an agent because the volume is quite high. And Nitro, I want to get you in a little bit of trouble for a moment, which is I saw this debate internally on a Claude code channel that I thought was really interesting. Is between security and InfoSec and engineering.
Yeah.
And essentially what engineering was saying is, look, Claude Code is asking me every single time that I need to go ahead and do a certain action. It's like asking for a request. That makes it harder for me to do my job because I have to constantly be there babysitting, check. InfoSec's point of view, which I think was very reasonable as well, was, look, this is taking action on your behalf, so you need to understand every single action that they're taking. Engineering actually pushed back and said, which I again think was reasonable, is look, at the rate at which this is actually executing actions, the amount of things that it's making me have to review, it's similar to the iTunes terms of service. It's almost like I'm doing security theater by saying, I'm in the loop. I'm really not in the loop. I'm just saying yes effectively to everything because of the load.
Yeah.
Do you think that, right now, we don't necessarily feel comfortable with this YOLO mode, dangerously skip permissions, anything along those lines, really. And we want to make sure the human is somewhat authorizing actions.
Yes.
Do you see that changing, let's say, in 6 months? Because it's hard to forecast anything in AI where we're actually comfortable with the model governance running it?
Yeah, so I think, first of all, I think the human pressing enter, I have personally done that. If I'm asked to press enter 100 times, I don't even look at what it's asking. I just say yes, go, right? So that is pointless. That is not of any value.
And my guess is you have the most elevated permissions for every repo at the company.
Yeah. So it's not useful, right?
Yeah.
And in fact, the conversation I had with InfoSec team, and they agree too, is that I would much rather be more secure by design. But the way I think of more secure by design is two things. Can we do something at the, I'll call it the access level, where can we do more things around, descope tokens at the right permission, short-lived, so that based on intent, can we do some things like that? And that's again stuff we are exploring in terms of what we can do. And then secondly, can we also have this governance layer, which is almost like a second check, a model acting as a judge and trying to make sure they're not violating policy. So I think that's more realistic rather than having humans press enter and reading all of it. That's not likely. One of the best analogies I heard was that they said, all this, when you think about coding, it's like a compiler, right? They said earlier it used to be assembly and you went to higher level languages. Now from higher level languages, you're going to English language. Now, every time you write a piece of code in C or C++ or a favorite language, are you going verifying that the compiler is actually generating the right assembly code of the machine? And so you don't. Now, arguably this is different. Compilers are deterministic. A coding agent is not. But I think at some point we will reach a stage where we do trust these systems. But we need some kind of trust but verify model, which is what you do with, say, you hire a new employee, you make sure they're trained. At some point, you let them go, or you don't question everything they do, but you trust, but you verify. Maybe you do a review once a week, just say, hey, how is this going? And then if they see something that's obvious, hey, maybe this is not the right way to do it, you should do things differently. So I think we'll have to get to that kind of a model. That's the only way to scale.
Yes.
But building trust is not easy, and there are enough instances where I was researching a company, and I said, "How can you do this with this company?" It gave me a very convincing argument how to do it. Then I said, "Are you sure the product of this company does that?" And I said, "Actually, that's a good catch. It doesn't." And it turned out it does nothing like but it completely built this whole, very convincing argument of how this platform could be used to secure Claude code and stuff like that. So you do have to verify, right? And if something seems too fantastical, you have to assume that, double check that.
I had to recently explain to my dad that just because the AI says it's a great idea does not really mean much about it being a great idea.
But this comes back to the essence of trust, right? And in some ways, especially with humans, let's say a new employee comes in, obviously I would call it the early stage where building trust in that person, but there are 2 or 3 or 4 instances where they show that they're trustworthy, and after that you do trust them pretty blindly. When they say something, you trust that they've done the right thing because you know that they're competent, they're diligent, and they have done the homework before they come and tell you something.
Yes.
So but that level of trust is still hard to build with AI.
Yes.
And even with the latest models, we still see things like this.
Yes.
So this is one challenge. So we'll have to build, I'll call it a different way of doing trust but verify.
Yes.
And maybe this is where people have talked about, they take the output of one model, feed it to another model, see whether that model says the same thing, and then if 3 models say the same thing, then they say, okay, that's probably
use
right.
like a council of LLMs disagreement as like a metric. I think
so. Yeah, we'll have to figure out what the right way of building trust is, but it is a factor, and I understand. And I mean, even in engineering, people say that sometimes it comes up with very convincing arguments that turns out to be not true.
Give us some organizational advice, because on this point around trust, one way people have been thinking about solving this trust problem in, let's say, the largest enterprises, is they have an AI governance committee.
Yeah.
And we've had an AI governance committee for some time, too. I remember in the early days for AI governance committees, it felt like a more frictionful relationship between, let's say, maybe you wouldn't define it that way, but I would think like engineering and development versus legal and InfoSec, because this is a tale as old as time. Developers want to go. Legal and InfoSec want to make sure you protect risk. Those are at odds. What is the good operating model we've come to with AI governance committees that you'd encourage others to start to follow?
Yeah, and I think this was a partnership between, I would say, overall all of R&D with legal, privacy, and all of that. And I give credit to the legal team because they leaned it. In fact, AI initiatives being driven by one of our VPs of legal, right? So she leaned in and said, okay, let's figure out how to accelerate it, because she really believed that the world is changing and we need to change.
Yes.
So the way what we worked out is they said, okay, listen, we'll set a fast track, we'll set a set of criteria where if something falls within these criteria, it's a 24-hour SLA.
What are some of those criteria that are?
It's basic. So obviously anything that's a POC, no questions. Let's just go do it. Anything that uses an already agreed upon mechanism. We do a bunch of things through this kind of LLM gateway. There's a new way of doing things, but that's also going through the LLM gateway. But we have the checks and balances that, okay, great, easy, right? If it's something completely net new, we're taking sensitive customer information. It's going to be able to push it into this third-party app. Okay, that's we are talking slightly different. So turns out 90+% falls into the fast track. So pretty much they write a document, they push it in within 24 hours, they do the review and say, yeah, you can go ahead, right?
Yeah.
So again, it was a partnership where we worked out what the expectations were. We didn't try to bypass them. We said, hey, this is a problem we need to solve. And we had on the other side, we had people who said, yes, the world is changing, we need to change. Let's think about how to accelerate this. So that is, I think that's the key thing that is important to do, right? Because if the two sides are talking past each other, you can't figure out a mechanism like this.
Yes. I think one of the things I would everything is now moving faster, right? AI governance processes are faster. Roadmap has massively condensed too.
Yes.
Massively. From end of year to now we're thinking July for items.
I would say that it's still work in progress. I mean, there's some that we have accelerated, some are still taking longer than we expect. So we are working through the details.
But how has that shifted your thought process towards how you do engineering, resource allocation, investment, and how you even do roadmap planning? Because I think a lot of like companies now in this AI era, like I don't know what's coming in a year from now. Like I'm barely keeping up with what's coming up next quarter.
Yeah, I don't try to predict what software development lifecycle would look like a year from now. I just say I don't know.
Yes.
I'm just going to evolve. We just have to be ready to evolve. But a few things that we are trying to lay down some principles. We actually revisited within engineering. We have this kind of, we call it the Rubrik, which is kind of what we expect at each level of maturity as people grow in the organization, right? At different levels within the organization. So we completely rewrote that because we said, okay, the expectations are changing. But few things we're trying to do is, at overall as an R&D organization, I think we can be a lot more experimental. Earlier we would say, hey, if you want to do this, give me a business case so that I can justify investing 6 months of a 4% team to go do this. So give me at least 20, 30 customers who are, now if the 5 customers are interested, I don't know, let's build it.
Try it.
Try it. Maybe it'll take catch on, maybe it won't.
Yeah.
But even if those 5 customers, we give those 5 customers delight, and they will use a platform more extensively. So the bar for experimentation, I think, is lower. So we want to be more experimentative. I mean, and again, some of these things we have to figure out what the right balance is, right? You don't want to just say, oh, somebody just came up with ideas, throw it out there, because at some point you also want the product to be coherent. So it's just kind of, how do we have, again, like a fast track way in which we can go and figure this out. Yeah. And resourcing, the thing we are saying is we have to be a lot more fluid as an organization. So I'll give you the example of this API refactor thing that we took on, which we would never have even thought of doing. We allocated 5 engineers for 6 months. They thought they'll get it done 6 months. I think maybe it'll take 1 month more. But fundamentally, it's 4 engineers, a small fraction of the organization, doing a massive refactor, which we thought was impossible.
Something you thought would take at least a team of 8 for 3 years.
3 years.
Is now being done
if
with
at all,
as many people like in 6 months.
In 6 months, right? So now suddenly all of this is possible. So now what we want to do is, we want to start, can we create this virtual team who will take this initiative and say, this is you folks are focused on the initiative, go make it happen.
Yes.
Right? And then maybe they go back to their own teams and continue doing what they were doing. We can also say that, okay, now if we could maybe also operate with smaller teams. What needed 10 people, maybe we can now do it with 5 people.
Yes.
Does that mean, okay, now the other 5 people maybe will now take on a different area which we didn't have the bandwidth to take on?
Yeah.
Can we take away a lot of the time that engineers spend is triaging issues, triaging pipeline errors, things like that? What if we could automate all of this where you don't spend, I would say maybe sometimes even 20% of your time of a team could be going in this. What if we gave that back? What more could you do, right? So we want to be more fluid, both from a roadmap perspective, as well as from a organizational perspective.
Yeah.
I still feel that people want to be part of a team. You just can't be just a free agent. Right? Then it's like you don't have. There's a sense of identity with the team. There's a sense of like a mission, working with the team.
Yes.
So we're trying to strike this balance where you're still part of a team, but then maybe you'll be on, you'll play with this different team for 6 months and come back.
And actually, a lot of people have the question of like, there was a point where like AI success is theoretical and you're forecasting what will happen in jobs or something along those lines. But now we have, let's say, like real success in terms of the roadmap acceleration and others that we're seeing. And that introduces a net new large line item as well into like how you're thinking about the budget. I was in a meeting with Bipul and I remember one things he said was like, yes, we should fund this project and we can either fund it with headcount or we can fund it with tokens and a combination of the two. So if we were to talk tokens, like, I think I was looking at our utilization and Claude Code and others really went vertical. Or like, the orders of magnitude we're talking about are like on the orders of trillions of tokens or so. How does that actually then impact how you think about what does future investment within R&D look like? Is the right answer smaller teams doing more and spending more on tokens? Is it like just reallocation, growth? Like, have you thought about it, or is it too early to know what the forecast?
I think we are, as a company, I would still say we're still early in our journey, relatively. Yes, we're 12 years old, but still early in the grand scheme of things. We have the opportunity. We have a large market that we could go address. We started with I'll call it a certain addressable market. That addressable market has increased 2, 3, maybe 4, 5x compared to where we were because of the products we've added on top of the platform we've built. So there's no shortage of things to do. The way I think about it is that the other thing is that there was a lot of overhiring that happened I would say in the post-pandemic era. We were pretty conservative in that we didn't go overhire. We were still careful about how we hired. So I feel like we don't have that much, fat in the system.
Yeah.
So the way I think about it is that I've always, even before all AI stuff, the way I thought about was that at some point R&D has to provide leverage. And what I mean by that is, I'll grow R&D by 10%, but that'll increase revenue by 30%. Right? So that's a good business because I'm putting $10 and getting $30 out of it.
Totally.
Now maybe the question comes is like, okay, can we almost stay flat but continue to drive the growth of the company?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I think of it as two things that I think the larger market looks at.
Yeah.
There is this people are saying that some companies will be disrupted by AI and they will disappear. I think what they're looking for the ones that they think will succeed is one, is your core business being accelerated through AI?
Yes.
Is AI a
tailwind
tailwind for your core business? And then the second piece is that can your business actually, if this huge AI transformation is happening, do you have products or can your business actually help your customers make that transition, right?
Yes.
And it's ideally you can do both.
Right.
And so that's kind of the way I look at it. So can we do both? So the way I look at it from an R&D perspective is can we stay flat and continue to accelerate the growth of that? Which means that with the same set of engineers I have, can I now do more?
Yeah.
Can I
provide more go-to-market leverage? Can I saturate the absorption even better?
Even
better, right? I like that framing, and it's honestly the best type of environment to be in. I do see like a lot of headline and top-level concerns now around token consumption, how quickly it's going. The Uber CTO, I think, or CTO, basically had that announcement like, we're out of tokens for the year. How do you think about that? Like, are you do you think about like, hey, there's a mental limit on how many tokens we consume, and I'm tracking against that, or how do you think about the financial on tokens and token maxing?
So what we started putting in at least some metrics on spend and stuff like that pretty early, and so because of that we started getting visibility into the spend, and we gave the visibility to the finance team as well. What we did was we said, okay, given where things are going, we did some projections and said, okay, I think this is where next year's spend will be, right? So it was a unexpected line item added to the balance sheet, but we said but it's coming now. Let's figure out how to balance that. And so we worked with finance team and said, okay, what do we think should be the right overall OpEx envelope we should work with for this year? And then once you come to the new year, it's always easier to plan for that.
Right.
Now that you know what the trends look like. That said, the way I look at it is we're still figuring out the art of the possible with these tools. So I don't want to go constrain people to say, you only get X amount of tokens because we are finding more and more use cases that we want to. Terms of code review is pretty expensive because it's looking at a lot of lines of code. But then we want automated code review. So I don't want to hold back the team.
Yeah.
But what we are also kicking off is there's a lot of wastage that does happen.
Totally.
Right? Because right now people are just trying various things. Can we do some experimentation on the side to see what are the biggest cost? What are the pieces that drain a lot of dollars?
Yeah.
And then can we optimize that? And then we make that part of the paved path that everybody follows.
I think realistically, even looking at our traffic, the room for optimization is quite large. Like, if you thought about our Opus usage, like the most expensive model, is like significantly larger than either Sonnet or Haiku.
Yeah.
Obviously, every model provider has their own individual instances.
Yeah.
And I think that's great for as you start because it makes you enable rapid progress, but you can easily cost optimize that.
But at the same time, you also want to see what it takes to get to the efficient frontier. So you don't want to hold people back.
Yeah.
So this is where you let people run.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you start looking at certain things, and then we're also trying to get people onto a paved path, saying, "Hey, this is the paved path you should be following,
right.
On a day-to-day basis." So then we started incorporating that into the paved path. So we created like a team within our developer platform that is focused on, I'll call it the developer experience, and then they are basically trying to create this paved path. Say, okay, here's the way you would do planning before you write code. Here's how you would implement. Here's how you would go, review the code, have an adversarial review of the code that was just written.
Yes.
So can we incorporate certain things? So for example, maybe we can also incorporate what is the right model to use for each phase, and there might be some easy
That'd be really
things there.
interesting. Yeah.
There are also certain things where you repeatedly do certain things, and you could just make it go grep the code repeatedly, or you could actually maybe have in each directory have a little .md file that gives a little description. So then all it's doing is just scanning the code. It reads the description and says, this is not relevant to me, and moves to the other directory. You probably save a lot of tokens that way.
Yeah.
There are also certain things where maybe you can write deterministic code as part rather than doing it manually by pushing it to the model. So that way, then you just reuse that repeated. So there are ways in which you can probably
lots of good ideas on how to be able to manage
So
that aspect.
we are putting a focused effort on what can we do, given what we know, and then how can we incorporate that in the Paved part.
One of the things that you mentioned is like, look, okay, tokens aren't really the constraint then. It's not necessarily engineering velocity, but then what can the market absorb? Go to market.
Yeah.
Claude Code has changed the game for developers. It doesn't feel like the game has changed for good market. Like, it feels like it's improved 20%, 30%, 40%, but it's not like a 3x change. I think two questions that I have for you. The first is, you mentioned kind of like this coaching assistant. What are the 2 to 3 things that you think could happen in the market over the next year that would be a game changer on go-to-market so that you could get more leverage out of what's happening on product? The second question that I'm actually very interested in is, at Rubrik, do you think we'll build those things internally or just be looking for a solution on the market that we'll buy and plug in?
Yeah, it's interesting questions, right? So I think there are a few things, right? One is we are, again, this is specific to Rubrik, and each company has different challenges. But for Rubrik, one of the big challenges is we are a platform company. We build a platform. And because of that, now we have actually, I would say, five different products that we go and sell. And some of these are different buyers. And the challenge has always been, as I keep innovating, how do I enable a large sales organization to be able to now say, okay, this has changed. Oh, Mythos is now here. Because of that, there are certain implications. But how do you percolate this message to everybody, right? So I think the enablement of the sales team, where in a fast innovating environment, how do you keep them up to date? What to say? So I think that's one key area. The other key area is can we actually now understand our customers better? Part of it is existing customers who are maybe already using our products, and then again, this is where can we mine how they're using the products? Can we mine how conversations with them, based on conversations with them, there they might have other top of mind things that our platform could solve. Can we mine all of this information and then give guidance on how to go maybe attach to a different use case within a customer, and then if it's a completely new customer whom we haven't yet, who's a prospect, in that case, can we understand based on what they're doing? Can we actually do very specific, almost like more individualized, I would say, marketing towards them too? Again, can we reach out to them about things that are top of mind for them? Can we understand this better? So I think that can be significantly game changing, and I would say historically there have been lots of marketing tools that have tried to do this, but it's been an imperfect art.
These are good thoughts. What do you think is the probability that in the next 6 to 12 months we feel like a majority of these are addressed by the AI tooling we have internally? Like, what's your level of conviction that we'll address this?
Some of the stuff that I'm seeing, the stuff is just moving very, very quickly. I'm not just talking about the models. I'm just even the people within Rubrik who are that. There's one class of people who somehow just take to this like fish to water. They see this and suddenly they start thinking very differently, and then they just go. They're prolific, right? So sometimes we talk about, should we build a platform like this?
Is there a good example of that outside of engineering that comes to mind?
Yeah, there are people in marketing who have built like tools and use Claude Code to code tools for their own organizations, right?
Yeah.
There are the sales engineering organization has built a whole bunch of, like, this coaching sale is built by them.
Huh.
Sure, they're technical, but they're not necessarily developers.
Yeah.
But they went and built. They essentially built a prototype app.
Yes.
That would do this, right? So, again, there are enough people who are. What I would like to do is really, I don't want the silo that only R&D develops. I want the entire. I think the bar to be I would say a builder has gone down. I mean, you don't need an advanced computer science degree to do this anymore. Anybody with a decent idea can now actually code these things up. So, and it goes back to your questions like, would we buy this or build this? The interesting thing is, again, the bar to build has come down. So what that means is that very often the challenge when you buy is that you're taking a general purpose platform that a vendor's built, and you're trying to customize it to your use, and it's never a perfect fit, right? Because you have to work with where the platform is, and then you come back with enhancement. Then they add more enhancements.
Enterprise sales for the last 100 years.
100 years, right? But now building something that's custom for you is a lot easier.
Yeah.
So there is a question of saying the build versus buy question becomes a lot more interesting. Earlier, I would say most enterprise IT organizations would mostly buy and integrate, but now build is a possibility. So this some of this transcripts and mining calls and all that. People are building stuff, and I'm talking a matter of days, weeks, right? So then if it's that quick, sure, we can build something that's very custom to us, that's really fits in well with the way we operate. So I think there will be a lot more build than before.
So you think that relative to maybe 24 months ago, the portion of what we buy off the shelf is going to go down from a market share standpoint versus what we're going to be building. That makes a lot of sense.
I think I think my feeling is that, historically, if you think about most enterprise systems have been about organizing data for easy consumption by, so far, humans. You don't want to say, oh, here's petabytes of data, go figure out where the sales opportunities are maintained, right? You don't want 1,000 spreadsheets that you're going and scanning. So you brought all of them into a single system where you can easily reason about them. From everything I've seen, even with coding agents, all of that, the more you can give a harness or the right kind of context, the better the agents are. It's not that different from humans.
Right.
So I think there's always going to be those systems of record that will have value, even in the AI world.
Yes.
But then if the value you're providing is just a simple workflow saying, oh, take step 1, take step 2, take step 3, take step 4, based on data from different sources, that thing can be done by a model or an agent right now. So those companies are, you would say, why would I buy it? I would just build it, right?
Yes.
So if some software is pure workflow, I think we might just build that because we can build it more customized to our needs. So I think there'll be more building than before.
Nitro, I think you have a really interesting vantage point on a number of this because I think a lot of organizations, there's like that top-down board-level mandate, AI is popular, go figure out how to adopt AI. Typically, the CEO is also all gung-ho on that, let's go figure out how to adopt AI. I think that like amongst, owning product and engineering, one of the things that was also, in my mind, like given towards Nitro is also figure out how we operationalize this, like we're going to adopt AI inside of Rubrik. If you're thinking about like speaking to the CTO of another public company or the CIO of like a large Fortune 500 organization, what would be like a mistake that you feel like we made along the way you'd want them to learn from? And this could be over the last year as we began our AI journey. And what is like maybe a practical piece of advice as they're thinking about filling that board level mandate of becoming more AI native?
Yeah, I think one thing that we did was, obviously there are tons of AI tools. I wouldn't necessarily call it a mistake, but basically there was a lot of grassroots movement of, hey, I want this AI tool, I want that AI tool. But fundamentally, what we did not know at that time, and this is also learning that we developed, is that with AI, that what you don't want to do is just tweak a process. You want to step back and say, okay, if knowing what I know about what AI or agents can do today, how would I reimagine this process completely? And if I literally, and that's what a small startup would do, right? If a new startup starting today would look at maybe how it does procurement or billing or anything very differently because it's a different world. So you almost have to say, okay, for the rebuild from scratch, obviously we're a pretty complicated business, but how would you reimagine this process? So this is where when you think about enablement is not about, hey, I'll send you a tip of the day, an agent will send you a tip of the day. No, it's really, can an agent be like a coach in your ear, working with you, learning from where every call you make, you're learning through this even maybe in real time, it could send a Slack message saying, hey, looks like the customer's concerned about it. This is the way I would address it for the customer. So, or you could walk into a meeting well prepared on exactly what the state of the customer is, whether there's an implementation that's going well, not going well, so that you're not walking into a minefield, right? So that's kind of, you want to reimagine what the new world looks like, what the art of the possible is. And I think that's and I think many organizations try to say, oh, here's a nice little way of, I can use AI. It gives me, it maybe tweaks this process a little bit. Yeah, it tweaks this process a little bit, which is still a 10-20% productivity gain. That's great. But if you reimagine the process, then it could look completely different from what you would do before.
Right. Yeah, and I think that like the place that this really stands out is when I speak to a lot of organizations, and it's like, hey, what's the AI strategy rollout? And it's like, hey, we're giving everyone Copilot.
Yeah.
And that's a way to be able to get more information retrieval. That's useful, but it's not really like automating kind of the work as part of the AI transformation that organizations want to see. Yeah. We're halfway through the year right now, through 2026. How would you rate our progress on a scale of 1 to 10 in terms of the AI transformation we would hope to see by the end of the year? Like, are we on track? Where were we?
I would say we are in the thick of it. Engineering was a little ahead of the game, and because we were on the first to adopt. Even there, I would say we're not quite where we want to be. Because I think what happens is there's a lot of promise and there's a lot of things you can do, but then in a large organization, each team has its nuances, and the solution doesn't always work well, and then you have to rethink how to do it. And then when certain parts of the system start moving faster, other bottlenecks get exposed, and you say, no, I have to go fix that bottleneck. So that is, we are kind of working through a lot of that. So I don't think in engineering as well. I believe that I'm hoping that somewhere between second half to end of the year, we will actually fix all these bottlenecks and really rev up the engine even more. But then there might be certain organizational bottlenecks we'll have to solve. So, okay, now if we can do a lot more, then how can people be fluid? So that's a little more involved. On the larger business front, I think we're still working through that. There are certain things that we are trying to roll out horizontally across. But then we are picking certain things like, okay, we talked about if go-to-market is going to become bottleneck, how can we accelerate certain elements of that and reduce the amount of manual toil? So ideally, we want sellers to be talking to customers, figuring out what needs to be done to drive more sales. They shouldn't be doing other things. So can we automate away all of that?
Yeah.
And completely change the process there, right? So things like that. I would say we are very much to think of it. I think what we have done well is lean in hard.
Yeah.
I feel like even compared to certain peers, we are leaning in harder than many other companies are at our scale.
Yeah.
But we're still working through. I would say we're somewhere in 5 on 10 where we are
okay. Making progress, but not satisfied right now.
Not there yet.
5 out of 10, halfway basically to the aspirational journey for where you'd like us to be able to see. Signs of promise, but not fully there. That's really useful. I think I'm going to ask you one final question, which is last time, unfortunately, I didn't get a good prediction on the books because I forgot to ask towards the end of the episode, but it would have been fun to revisit. Since normally I ask on a 12-month cadence.
Yeah, I would have looked like an idiot.
12.
But yeah.
Well, one of the things I remember from last time is like we were talking even like in the hallway, and you're like, look, I think that coding agents are giving us like a 20%, a 25% boost, but it's not the game changer. I remember us talking about this conversation end of last year, and you weren't wrong. That was the literal on-the-ground empirical evidence. Now I'd say like, okay, is it 20%, 30%, or how would you almost characterize?
So obviously there are other bottlenecks in the system, but we are definitely seeing certain metrics like people are getting more than 2x the number of reviews that they're doing.
Yeah.
They're getting, definitely in terms of total amount of code output, they're more than doubled. We are seeing in certain large projects, we're seeing literally almost 2x improvement in terms of speed of delivery.
So if the feeling previously was on the margin of 20%, now the feeling is more like 2x.
Yeah, we are maybe approaching 2x, but it's not uniform.
Correct.
So for example, in terms of issue resolution, I don't think we're quite there yet. There are still some things we need to work out, how we make the triaging process a lot more foolproof. We are still maybe not quite at the level of accuracy we need to be.
Yes.
To me, the holy grail is customer works with our product, and again, we are also agentifying our platform. The agent works through it, says, oh, this is an issue, and figures, oh, this is actually a software issue. Goes files a support case, goes files a Jira. Then another agent comes, picks it up, and then says, okay, here's the root cause for it. Some engineer looks at it, slacks an engineer says, yeah, that looks correct, go ahead. Generates the code, engineer reviews it, okay, then it pushes it into production, deploys it, right? And then notification back to the customer saying, okay, it's checked in, it'll be deployed to your instance in 3 days.
Isn't it amazing that holy grail feels very achievable?
It is achievable now, right?
Yes.
Obviously, there's still moving parts. The challenge is that can we get each of these steps to that, I'll call it that 90%ish accuracy, because I think humans are probably, an experienced human is probably 90% accurate, probably 10% time where all of us still make mistakes. So if you can achieve that, then I think this is a feasible. It seems achievable, maybe in the next 6 months, maybe within the year, but there are some bottlenecks we need to solve for.
Definitely. And I'll just end by saying, like, we didn't get a chance to ask the prediction last time, but I'm curious now to like that we have the benefit. If you were to place yourself in the hot seat and say, like, what's a non-consensus view you have on AI? If you thought about the timescale over the next 12 months. So something you think is going to be true or is true about AI that you think isn't a widely held belief.
I think there are still some fun. I mean, again, if you look at the larger state of AI, AGI, everything that people talk about, I think there's still some fundamental pieces missing is the way I look at it. I don't know, a lot of people feel that we are on the path to AGI and stuff like that. There are a few things that, the thing is, so for example, as humans, we process a lot of information, and we are still able to, even though we are overloaded information, sure, we can't like keep everything in our heads, but we can read through a lot of stuff and then still make good judgments. And we see models struggling with that, right? As you increase the context of information, there is some element of, call it hallucination, call it whatever, going down the wrong path. So we definitely see that. So I think there are some issues, and fundamentally, everything that has been built, I think there are still some missing pieces there. The other thing is that in any technology, as it starts gaining traction, you usually see the cost factor come down. Basically, that you have to do less to achieve the same kind of task. On the other hand, obviously, we are adding capabilities as well. But if you think about the models, the models are getting more and more expensive, right? And then that's because they're spending a lot of resources trying to solve for this. So I think there is there's still some leaps that are missing. Obviously, call it the transform architecture, all that was a big leap, which got us to where we are. But I think I think AGI is still not quite there, is my take.
So your take is, a lot of people I feel like at the labs now define AGI as coming in the next 1 to 3 years is like the timeline, which is funny because it like lacks a perfect definition of AGI, but that seems to be like the San Francisco vibe in some ways. Yeah. Sounds like your view is like it's probably in the later end or further out.
I feel it's further out because I think there are some fundamental missing pieces in this ecosystem.
Yes.
Again, I'm not an AI expert. I'm just trying to, but some of these signals that I see, I feel like there has to be some more game-changing innovation that comes in and to get. It's likely we'll get there at some point, but I don't know if it's the next 1 to 3 years, to be honest.
Yeah, and I'm actually sitting here and wondering, like, what are the things that the models aren't already doing better than the average human? So I feel like we've got some interesting.
No, I think the two things, right? One is they are very good. I mean, this coding and all of that, they are obviously very good at it.
Yeah.
Even search as the way we know it has changed, right? So there are a bunch of things that have changed, and those are game changing, right? Yeah. And I think they're getting better and better and better, right? But to literally say, I don't need to hire a human or an AI can do exactly what I do.
We're still far from that.
I think there's still a gap there.
That makes a lot of sense. Naitakarsha, thank you so much for joining this episode and this recap that we had an opportunity to reflect on what the world was like 6 months ago. And then I think something big obviously happened. And I think we're living in a fundamentally different world now. This is a lot of fun, I think, to be able to cover everything that's been working. We've made an incredible amount of progress internally and kind of what AI has enabled in that. And I'm excited to be able to catch up again in another 6 months, recap on the rest of this year.
Yeah, I think it'll probably be a very different world. No, again, it's great to be back here and really enjoy the conversation. And I think, let's trade notes in about 6 months, see where we are. I don't even try to predict anymore. It's just,
I've written down the 5 out of 10, and I know exactly where we're headed. So thank you very much, Nitro. And until next time, we're excited to see you for the very next episode of Dev in the Details. Thanks for tuning in.